Afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining. We're going to wait just a few more minutes before we get started to let some more people join. Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to give it another minute or two before we get started. We got a few more people trickling in. Might as well just wait till we get critical mass here. All right, it's 3:03. I think we can go ahead and get started. Alana, you can keep admitting people as they arrive. Welcome, everybody, to the first meeting of our PVGEMS Deployment Advisory Group. I want to thank you all for your interest in our project and the PVGEMS technology. We plan to convene this group on a quarterly basis to discuss topics related to commercializing PVGEMS and deploying the technology at scale. Since today is our first meeting, if you could show the agenda, Alana. What we'd like to do is first, I'm going to give a quick overview of the PVGEMS technology. Then we're going to have Stacy Rothgeb from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, going to give an overview of how her team at DOE's Advanced Building Construction Initiative is supporting our efforts and how the overall effort fits into Department of Energy's decarbonization goals. Then we're going to have representatives from the National Association of State Energy Officials lead us in a facilitated discussion to talk a little bit about what potential market demand is for PVGEMS and how we can bring the technology to that market. So we got a couple of Zoom logistics here. We just ask that when people aren't speaking, if you can keep your microphone muted, and whenever possible, use the raise hand function or the chat to ask questions. At least until we get to the facilitated discussion, we'll be able to unmute mics and have a conversation there. I want to let everybody know we are recording this meeting. It's exclusively for internal purposes. We're not going to post the recording. We're happy to share the slides with people that want them, but we don't plan to share the recording. So with that, we'd like to do a real quick round of introductions. If people could just state their name and affiliation. We'll start with the FSEC team. I'm Eric Martin. I'm the principal investigator on this project with the Florida Solar Energy Center. We're a research institute of the University of Central Florida. I'll pass that over to Rob Vieira.
Hi, I'm Rob Vieira. I'm the Director of Buildings Research here at FSEC. I'm excited we have this PV GEMS project.
Carlos?
Hi, I'm Carlos Colon. I'm a research engineer here at the Florida Solar Energy Center. So I'm the lead technical for the PV GEMS project.
And let's go with NASEO.
Hi, I'm Alana Bell, and I'm the residential buildings coordinator at NASEO. I'll pass it off to Maddie.
Hi, everyone. Maddie Kohler, program director at NASEO.
And I'm Rodney Sobin. I'm a senior fellow at NASEO, and I guess I'll pass it to Stacy from NREL.
Stacy Rothkopf, National Renewable Energy Lab. I lead a group here at NREL where we're trying to get all these great technologies out of the lab system and into the hands of the folks that can use them. Today I'll be representing DOE and the Advanced Building Construction Initiative. Thanks.
And I can just kind of go down the list as people appear on my screen here. Let's go with Paul Johnson. I think you're muted, Paul.
Paul Johnson, I'm Executive Vice President of Watsco Inc. We're the an air conditioning distributor in the U.S.
Kevin Porter.
Good afternoon, Kevin Porter with Rock USA. We're a national nonprofit supporting resident ownership and manufactured home communities. We're a recruitment partner here. My title is VP of Loan Originations, but I also manage our energy resources work. Thank you.
Bill Grieco.
Hi, Bill Grieco, Chief Technology Officer at Inventure. Inventure is a company that builds and grows and scales new companies in the sustainability sector. I'm also the most recent past chair of the advisory board for FSEC. Happy to be here.
Roy Crawford.
Hi, sorry for the delay. Had trouble finding the right buttons. I'm Roy Crawford with Johnson Controls in Norman, Oklahoma. We make, I'm part of our ducted systems division. We make residential and light commercial air conditioning and heat pump systems.
Dylan Teal.
Hey, Eric. This is Dylan Teal. I'm an energy advisor for our utility incentive program run in Louisiana, Energy Solutions. And I have 5 years of experience running a manufactured homes weatherization program.
Kevin McGrath.
Hi, folks. Kevin McGrath, Senior Consultant, BEIC. We're part of the ABC Collaborative, and we run decarbonization programs around the country.
Maura Mooney.
Hi, I'm a senior associate at RMI and help to lead the Advanced Building Construction Collaborative under RMI.
Arshad.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Harshad Inamdar. I'm a research engineer for remanufacturing in Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Jason Tancher.
Hello, my name is Jason Tancher. I'm an engineer with the California Energy Commission, and I'm a solicitation manager in the building decarbonation unit, where we just closed a solicitation on something very similar to PV GEMS. So happy to be aboard. Thanks for having me.
Megan Duff.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Duff with the Association for Energy Affordability. I work in our R&D focused arm, and am here on behalf of the ABC Collaborative. We're working under RMI and ADL Ventures to support Topic 1 research teams, and very happy to be here. Good to see you all.
And Tyler Play.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tyler Play. I'm a research engineer at Pacific Northwest National Lab, and I support the ABC Initiative's R&D portfolio. So happy to be here.
All right, I think that's everybody. If I missed anybody, go ahead and jump in. But with that, I'm going to share my screen, just give a quick overview of PV GEMS, what it is, and how technology works. Okay, so PV GEMS is short for photovoltaic powered grid enhanced mechanical solution. I do want to acknowledge our partners. We're working with Ream, who's providing some equipment for the demonstrations that we're currently working on. We're working with the Resident-Owned Communities Association to help us recruit homeowners within manufactured housing communities that we can install PV GEMS on for the demonstration. And we're working with NASEO, who is leading our tech to market efforts for this project. Our project is part of the U.S. Department of Energy's Advanced Building Construction Initiative. And in general, that initiative is looking to use industrialized construction solutions to deploy deep energy retrofits to existing buildings within the U.S. Variety of different techniques involved. The picture you see there is using kind of a universally applicable overclad panel to reduce the load on buildings that can be manufactured off-site, and it's generally applicable to buildings of that type. We're doing something a little bit different with PV GEMS, and we're bundling together efficient heat pump technologies, specifically heat pump water heaters and heat pump space conditioning systems in a pod, and mating that with a modest photovoltaic and battery energy storage system. The picture that you see on the top is kind of a rendering of our original concept, and the picture on the bottom there is our prototype that we have installed on a manufactured housing laboratory here on campus that we're currently working with. The idea is that we can pre-package most of these components off-site and then be able to deliver the pod to the site and hook it up to a home quickly and easily with a minimal amount of disruption to the occupants. With primarily just a main electrical connection, a hot and cold water connection to the home, and then running refrigerant lines and power between the indoor and outdoor unit of the space conditioning heat pump. We got a couple different versions of PV GEMS technology that we're in the process of demonstrating. All of the versions replace a home's existing water heater with a heat pump water heater. The version that you're looking at here, we call our supplemental mini split version, and this is applicable to an existing home that has an existing space conditioning system with some useful life left in it, but isn't particularly efficient. So we're providing kind of a modest capacity ductless mini split heat pump that we centrally locate. It's very efficient. And the idea is that we use that system to provide as much of the home's heating and cooling load as possible, recognizing that we will have to rely on the home's existing system to handle peak load and in some cases distribute comfort to rooms with closed doors. We've had some good success with this approach, just supplemental mini split in both warm and cold climates. So PV GEMS takes a modest PV and battery system, combines it with kind of a new class of grid-assisted inverters, with the idea being that that can enhance the resource use efficiency of the components by minimizing the amount of energy we draw from the grid. So when there is renewable energy available from the photovoltaic system, we can use that to power the components directly, and we can supplement that with energy use from the grid as necessary. And we have a kind of a modest battery storage system that enables us to capture some excess renewable energy when it's available, but we're not using it because with this system, no energy generated by the PV array is sent back from the grid. It's all used on site. So this avoids the need for an interconnection agreement with the utility. So this system designed to reduce energy use, demand, and carbon, provide renewable electrification, and enable elements of both resilience and grid interactivity. So we feel that this kind of prepackaged mechanical system pod can be beneficial in cases where we can only accomplish a minimal enclosure upgrade on the path to providing a deep energy retrofit. So a couple of examples of use cases for this are existing manufactured housing, where we often see deferral of weatherization and other services due to the need for high-cost structural repairs. We also run into situations where there's limited heating, cooling, and water heating equipment replacement options due to space constraints within manufactured housing. So you can see the photo there is from a study done by the Energy Trust of Oregon, where they're trying to squeeze heat pump water heaters into the tiny space allocated for the storage water heater in a manufactured home. Documented increased installation costs for heat pump water heaters in that sector, along with a bunch of other complications. One thing we can leverage that there has been some success with is deploying shallow retrofits to manufactured housing communities at scale. So an example from a New Hampshire Community Loan Fund study pilot program with weatherization, working on kind of a community scale approach, improving 70% of the homes in 38 communities, rather than doing kind of onesie-twosie retrofits. Another application for PVGEMs we see is mild climate single-family homes, where relatively costly enclosure retrofits, such as window and wall insulation, have lower energy savings potential. However, with homes in those sorts of climates, we have seen some success with equipment retrofits that can directly address heating, cooling, water heating energy, making a big impact. One of the challenges with that, though, is dealing with multiple contractors and the logistics of upgrading all of that equipment when you're trying to accomplish a deep energy retrofit. So what kind of deep energy reductions can we expect with PVGEMs? We have some pilot systems operating here on a couple of different building laboratories on campus. We took data from those systems and used that to calibrate an Energy Plus simulation. And then we simulated single-family homes in a variety of different climate zones. We had a couple of different baselines representing different vintage of homes and different existing central heating and cooling systems. And what we're seeing is the potential to reduce energy use intensity for heating, cooling, water heating from 50 to 90% in all of those climates that you see. We do have another system that we're planning on demonstrating that is larger capacity and does facilitate a heating and cooling system replacement, not just a supplement with a mini split, but a centrally ducted, inverter driven, maybe 2 to 3 ton central system replacement. So this is a larger capacity system. It does require a larger PV array, and it also uses a larger capacity battery storage system to go along with that. So the technology to market activity that we're working on here over the next couple of years, you've heard me mention a couple of times that we're demonstrating PVGEM. So we're installing PVGEM systems on 12 occupied homes in a variety of climate zones. There's going to be a mix of both manufactured homes and single-family detached homes, looking to demonstrate both the mini split version and the central system replacement version. And these demonstrations are expected to provide us feedback on design, installation, performance, customer satisfaction issues with PVGEMs that we can use to refine the technology as we move towards commercialization and larger scale deployment. Some of the things we're looking to accomplish with this deployment advisory group include helping us identify customers and the associated market demand. So what we're looking to do is look beyond marketing to homeowners with a direct consumer approach. I mean, there is some potential for that, but we're also thinking of the ability to market to existing programs to influence the demand for PVGEM. So these might be utility programs, state or local government programs, nonprofit programs that are already working with homeowners that can benefit from this technology. We're also looking to identify and leverage various financing programs and incentives to help influence the demand. So these may be programs that are dealing with whole house energy savings, maybe dealing specifically with efficient equipment, maybe specifically with a solar storage system or electrification or demand response. You know, PVGEMs kind of accomplishes all of the above. And the idea is that we want to identify and leverage all applicable financing and incentive programs to help keep the technology as affordable as possible and get it in the hands of as many people as possible. Oops. Okay. And also we'd like to explore business models for PVGEM's manufacture, sales, installation, and service. So we want to look at, you know, pros and cons of who might commercialize this technology and bring it to market. Is an existing company that's manufacturing certain components, or is it a completely new company that's going to source and integrate the components to bring PVGEMs to the market? Are we looking at outright sales of the PVGEMs pod, or are we looking at maybe deploying it as part of an energy service contract or maybe as an aggregator model? We also want to look at, are we going with kind of a traditional equipment manufacturer, distributor, retailer, or basically contractor type model versus something that's maybe more of a turnkey model. And I just wanted to mention that, we recognize PVGEM's cross-cuts across multiple disciplines that are traditionally siloed, so plumbing, mechanical, solar, electrical. And so as part of our project, we are working on a sales and installation curriculum that features some video content and interactive installation training to help kind of unite this process together. And then lastly, we hope that all of that activity will eventually inform potential needed revisions to the design function and features of PVGEM's technology. So we're demonstrating, our versions that I talked about, but maybe it makes sense to bring on some additional end-use loads into the mix. Maybe we want to look at including additional solar storage capacity above and beyond the real modest system that we have planned that has some limitations, but also helps keep the system more affordable. Maybe we also want to look at modified or multiple pod design and form factors. So we've been kind of moving forward with this shed concept. The size of the shed is really dependent on the size of the PV array if the plan is to install the PV array on the roof of the shed. You can see in the picture in the bottom there, if you do something else with the PV array, you can really get down to a smaller shed. And maybe that's going to be an application for some situations. Maybe there's a market for bigger sheds. This is an example of a product by a company called Upright Energy. They call it Main Solar Sheds, and they're doing some, detached garage size sheds with off-grid PV systems on them. And these are built, pre-packaged in a factory and delivered to the site. So it kind of fits the PVGEM's model. Maybe we don't really want a shed at all. Maybe it makes sense to have kind of more of a industrialized type enclosure or look to it. So these are all the things we're kind of exploring as we move from a demonstration phase kind of to a commercialization phase. With that, I think we've got time for a couple of questions before we move on to Stacy's presentation, if anybody has any. If not, I'll stop sharing my screen and we can have Stacy bring up her presentation.
Before I share, I want to kind of pull the group because I feel like I might be like preaching to the choir here. A lot of familiar names in here. So like through a show of hands, virtual hands are fine. Like how many people, my intention was to talk to you a little bit about how this project and ABC, the Advanced Building Construction Initiative, are really supporting DOE and the Building Technologies Office goals. But I have a feeling that most of you already know this. So for a show of hands, who is aware of the building's decarbonization blueprint that was recently put out by the Department of Energy? Yeah, over half. And what about the Affordable Home Energy Earthshot? Give me some more hands. Yep, absolutely talking to the choir. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to pull up my slides and we're going to go through it really fast though, because what is valuable here is the discussion we plan to have afterwards, and also talk a little bit more, like dig into what the Advanced Building Construction Initiative, how it's kind of unique because there is this focus on commercialization and technology to market, which is not what we always see in some of the research and development programs. So let me share. This always takes a moment. All right, are you guys seeing my slides?
Not yet.
No? Oh, look, last button there.
Yes.
Better? Okay. So here it is. It's the decarbonization blueprint. And what's cool about this is that DOE has set that goal is to actually get us to essentially net zero by 2050, in the next 25 years. A lot of this is stuff we've all worked with before, energy efficiency and electrification, but there's a couple newer things too. So this like transforming the grid edge, this is the idea that buildings are no longer a load on the grid, they're now an enabler of the grid, and when we use energy is just as important as how much we use. And I'm super excited about this last one, where it's the first time we're seeing embodied carbon and embodied emissions considered. So it's not only the operational, but it's also that, that first cost of what building things costs us. Very important too with the blueprint is that the cross-cutting goals of if we're not doing this equitably, affordably, and with resilience, we're not going to get the national scale that we need to. Here's the shot. This is all about costs. It's like the idea that we need to drive down both first cost and operational costs if we're going to make this accessible to everybody. You know quite a bit about ABC, this group does. So the big thing I think to notice here is what I've already said is that ABC is a little bit different, I think, in the fact that it's really these last points. It's not only development, but demonstration, commercialization, and deployment. So it doesn't matter if we make these great technologies, if people are not adopting them at speed and scale, we're not making the change that we want to make. So again, it ties to the Earth shot. It's all about collaborative. So I also like ABC because we do have the ABC Collaborative as a partner on this, which is an industry-run organization that is both building that supply chain and doing that demand aggregation. So again, we have to actually get the technologies out into the market if we're going to make change, and we absolutely have to talk about these successes. We can't, it has to be more than the people on this call that knows what's happening if we're going to be successful. Supply, demand, to communicate. Here's what I'll focus on a little bit is like, what is the ABC technology to market? And the idea here is that unlike some other maybe FOAs that you might have been involved with, commercialization is at the start of this. It's like from the very beginning of projects is to have the conversations we're going to have here is like, really, what is our market? Who should we be marketing to? What is those cost points that we need to be addressing? What are our real risks that we need to be up against? And also in this program, these are multi-year efforts. It's the idea that we are continually reviving this conversation. Some of the, so there will be this technology to market plan, this part of this project that we will be looking at it again and again. And it's not even that, the goal is it's not that you've actually gotten all the way to market, even though that is absolutely a prized carrot, but it's the idea that you know what those steps are to get there. And so really looking forward to the conversation and what the great minds on this call can give back this project. Also throw out there is that there is technical assistance being provided out of the Department of Energy, a lot of it coming from the ABC Collaborative, which is if we need to make connections with venture capital or if we need to make connections with demonstration sites, looking at pitch decks, those resources are available to us. And I am going to stop there. Reach out if you have ideas. I always want to talk so that we can get to the good conversation.
Yeah, I think that's great. I kind of see that, this activity is really kind of laying the groundwork for commercialization and making it much more attractive for a particular entity to come in and, commercialize the technology when all of this groundwork has kind of been done and presented to them, as opposed to having to undertake all of that from the get-go. So I think it really kind of gives us, a nudge in that direction by starting with this in mind instead of waiting till the end. So I think we want to maybe move on to the facilitated discussion. I think, Alana, we've got a slide with some questions we want to use to prompt.
And I can jump in now and guide folks through these questions. Hi again, everyone. My name is Maddie Kohler. I'm with NASEO. And like Eric mentioned at the beginning of the call, we are working with FSEC on their tech to market plan, which includes facilitating these advisory group meetings. So we've got some guided discussion questions up on your screen now, but we don't need to stick to these if folks have other ideas, any other thoughts that they want to share. So feel free to jump in with anything that's not on the slide at any time. But first, we can start with a question that Eric actually raised in his presentation, which is to hear from the group and to get a better understanding of where you think there's demand for this kind of technology. So I'll leave it there for now for folks to answer or for folks to jump in with anything else that might be on their mind about this project.
Yeah, this is Paul Johnson from Watsco. Yeah, looking at the market, the manufactured housing tends to be a different channel into the market than the single family market as far as the contractor support is concerned. And there's only about what, 7 million manufactured homes out there, I guess, in the US. Most of those would not be in mild climates, it'd be in hotter, warmer climates in the South. So I'm just wondering, as we move into this, the idea of a ducted system seems to have more legs to it, in my opinion, than a non-ducted system. And it just seems to me that there's a bigger marketplace for us to go after if we were able to focus on the ducted part of the market.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are good comments. The success we've had with the supplemental mini split concept has actually been single family detached. So, and we've actually seen a fair number of programs and incentives kind of centered around that to accomplish a number of different goals, whether it's, on the path towards electrification, if it's towards energy savings and those sorts of things. So I think, the supplemental mini split approach does apply in the single family detached housing sector as well. The challenge, as I alluded to with the larger system, centrally ducted system that we're planning, is that it's a larger footprint, especially if we're looking at innovative places to install the photovoltaic array, namely on the roof of the shed. And so it just implies the need for, for some more space. And, that's kind of one of the things we're trying to think about as part of this is the footprint and available space. I think we've heard, some mixed feedback about, we should really be trying to minimize the footprint and keep the shed, let's say, as small as possible. But we've also heard it on the other side too, that, having a larger shed provides some additional value and people get some storage space and some other use out of that, particular enclosure. So I think go, both ways, and hence the thought of maybe multiple versions of PV gems instead of like a single SKU, just a single one size fits all. But I think that's the trade-offs I think we want to explore as part of this. And I will say, and maybe Kevin's going to speak to this, the size of the manufactured housing market and where they're located. I mean, I think the market's larger than that, and certainly more geographically distributed than I think the hot, humid climate that you're thinking. There's definitely a lot of manufactured homes there, but we see quite a few in the Northeast and Northwest as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's a little bit larger than that. About 6% of the U.S. population lives in manufactured homes. Of that, about 2/3 own their home on fee simple land. They just brought a home in and put it on their land rather than having a builder build a site-built home for them. I was going to reference a couple of data points or information, which I'm happy to share around. One is an article here from Northern New England. The Portland Press Herald did a great research story on heat pumps, including some work in manufactured homes, which I can send along to everyone. And also mentioned that very much appreciate being a part of this study here at Rock USA. We are a very, very small part of the market, and about 45,000 manufactured home communities or mobile home parks in this country, and about 330 in our network. So, speaking of those numbers before, I think if the goal here is bringing this to scale and commercialization, it might be those homeowners on fee simple land for any number of reasons. But I do want to again communicate our appreciation for being part of the study here.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Paul. Anyone else want to jump in on whether or not you think there's demand for this technology? And if so, where do you see that demand?
I look at the average cost of of a new system installed today, you know, in the marketplace. We track that. At Watchville, we install about 23 to 24% of all the units that are installed in residents in the US. And so what we look at is, you know, what's the average cost that the contractor is actually quoting to the consumer. Depending on the size of the equipment, it generally tends to be somewhere right now between 12,000 and around 17,000 would be an average price band that we would see in there. And I just wonder, price-wise, does this thing fit that mode in your mind? I mean, could we get it to a price where it would be, let's say, a $15,000 drop in a replacement?
Yeah, that's the hope. And I guess also some of the thinking along the lines of the supplemental mini split is that central system replacement, you know, those costs are big and hard to undertake, especially if somebody has this existing system with some useful life left in it. You know, if it's kind of a situation where, you know, the system dies and we need to replace it, you know, we want to have that central system replacement option, but for the people that have a lower efficiency system with some life left in it, and it doesn't make sense to replace it with a $12,000 to $17,000 cost, we could look at bringing in PV Gems that has that supplemental mini split, but along with the heat pump water heater and the solar and batteries for about that cost. So yeah, that's kind of our target. We're thinking somewhere in the range of $12,000. You know, after leveraging available incentives. That's right around where we are.
Yeah, it'd be great if we could do this without incentives, you know, set the goal so that we didn't have incentives. I just hate to build a program around governmental programs and utility rebates. It's got to be able to stand on its both feet, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's complex because,
Yeah.
right, I mean, there are federal ones, but there's also lots of, you know, state, regional, and local ones. So, you know, the bottom line is going to differ from place to place. But I think that's also true in the heat pump replacement market when we're dealing with this equipment. I mean, we've got certain local incentives for heat pump heating and cooling, heat pump water heating that exist in this place and that place, but not in this place over here. And so we are kind of able to navigate that currently. So, but it is an additional challenge.
And the two biggest states for air conditioning have always been California, Florida, or excuse me, Texas and Florida, which each one are well over $1 million apiece and not very receptive to governmental input right now. Maybe that'll change.
True. But we're also got a big market for heating dominated climates too, especially with the potential to leverage this to meet electrification goals and switch over from fossil fuels. There's some potential here even in colder climates.
Let's go next to Megan. I saw you first, and then Stacy. You're still on mute, Megan.
Thank you. I was so focused on lowering my hand. Yeah, I was just going to comment on demand, other sort of areas of demand for PV Gems. I work almost exclusively in the multifamily sector, so that's sort of where my head goes first. Space constraints is a huge sort of barrier, I think, to this technology or solution in that sector. However, there are, I think, in sort of the low-rise scattered site typology of multifamily buildings, this is a potential. I'm currently working on a CEC-funded study on combined mechanical systems, and we also worked on demonstrating the sort of pod shed enclosure approach. Our biggest constraint there again was space, and the shed was pretty huge and costly. But it looks like your shed and your sort of review of different form factors of that shed and whatnot might kind of target different angles of that enclosure style. The other thoughts I had related to multifamily, again, on the kind of scattered site where there are kind of single story individual kind of garden style entry units. There's often space around the building where this actually might make sense. And most of my work is in California. So I'm thinking of the areas in California that are not able to leverage solar PV at the tenant or unitary level, where VNEM tariff doesn't exist, and I think most of the country doesn't have access to that sort of tariff and possibility for tenant benefits of solar. So I think there's potential for that, again, if you can get around the space constraints for leveraging kind of direct solar energy usage for water heating and HVAC at the tenant level. I think would be a huge benefit for bill reduction and potential for load shifting for grid optimization. And then one more thought, and I don't know if this is technically possible or you're thinking in this form factor, but modularizing the system for a central water heating system that can leverage the PV, direct PV usage for demand charges. That's another sort of venue for, I think, direct solar energy benefit.
That's
Eric, anything you want to add, or I can jump over to Stacy?
no, we can go to Stacy.
I was going to kind of go back, and this kind of builds on what Megan was saying too, is like go back to the concept, Eric, that you presented about a larger structure in a garage. And I'm pulling together the fact that the stat that was just said that 2/3 of these manufactured homes are actually on property. So it's not a space constraint. And also, I don't know where this comes from, but people don't actually buy energy efficiency and cost reduction. I mean, they buy things where it adds value to their world. And I could see a garage being an added value that people may invest in where they may not invest in these equipment upgrades. So I would love to hear, this committee's thoughts on if that is a viable market.
I think you're dead right on. People do not buy energy efficiency. They do buy things that enhance the value of their property. I do agree with that. Be interesting to kind of probe that out and find out, what would happen on a modular building like a garage that you could position in a home. And that would cover not just manufactured housing, but also would do the regular stick built home. I think that'd be an interesting question to be able to push.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear from Kevin at Rock USA or Kevin VIC or any folks that sort of like work with manufactured housing communities directly, if you think there'd be interest in a more garage style approach.
Yes, the space is an issue. I mean, we see a lot of carports, and there could be panels on carports. I think, as Stacy mentioned, for those homes on fee simple land, absolutely a huge opportunity there. And this may not be scalable, but something I'm interested in. We are getting a Solar for All award, and I'm trying to think about ways to combine batteries with that. That there are so many problems with interconnection right now and grid availability. I'm trying to find ways to put large batteries combined with these new community solar projects that'll be funded from Solar for All, and ways to make that work. So, if anyone has some ideas and would want to have a follow-up conversation, please let me know.
I could see a form factor too, where you had a small shed at the end and a carport, and that gets you that increased, area for your panels.
For sure,
creating all new products here.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of homeowners in manufactured home communities do have little sheds because they don't have basements or attics, so they have sheds to store their stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, along the lines of customers or homeowners not investing in efficiency, but they're investing in value and comfort and other things like that. I think that's what kind of gave us the idea of the potential for like an energy service contract type model, where you get a company that can see the potential there and they kind of take ownership and handle maintenance and everything of the equipment, and they can just provide lower energy bills and enhanced comfort and things like that to the homeowners. And, maybe looking to do that, as kind of an aggregator at the community scale. Maybe it's something that's marketed to manufactured housing communities to make as an asset that's part of the lot that the homeowners are paying rent for. And it's, one on every lot that they can hook up to. That was the thought there, that, if we can't count on homeowners to, purchase it outright. Maybe they can, share some of the benefits with an ESCO type.
Kevin McGrath, I see you came off mute. Did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Eric if you could talk a little bit more about how the demonstration of this has unfolded, like where and what, and a little bit of the details. I'm just curious about those aspects.
So we're targeting 2 homes in 6 different climates. Some of those are in flux, but we're currently working with Rock USA on a manufactured housing community in Hudson, Massachusetts. We're working with them on a manufactured housing community in Durango, Colorado. We've also identified potential to do additional manufactured housing community demonstrations in Oregon, Texas, North Carolina. But we're going to target some single-family detached demonstrations for the whole house replacement centrally ducted system. We were initially targeting kind of the southeastern US for that, so kind of climate zone 3/4 for those. So right now we're in the process of recruiting participants in the Massachusetts community and Colorado community. I'm actually getting phone calls from our recruitment postcard that we sent out, and we're going to start making some selections there, and then we'll move on to the other locations. The timing on it is to get 12 homes in total, get them recruited and instrumented before the end of this year so we can start collecting some pre-retrofit data. We're kind of targeting 6 to 8 months of pre-retrofit data. Then landing the PVGEM systems, let's say, next summer, and then aiming to get 12 months of post-retrofit data from those homes. So on the more technical side, we're working with an engineering firm, EXP, that's developing kind of an engineered permit package for PVGEMs, and kind of already starting to interface with local building departments to incorporate all the little design changes we need to make sure this is a permittable installation.
Does that answer all your questions, Kevin?
Yes, it does. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks. Let's go next to Jason.
Hello, hey Eric. What you were talking about a moment ago about energy as a service, we were talking about that with my effort here also with like HVAC as a service. And what I really like about that I don't think was discussed today is it can address the split incentive problem, where sometimes utility incentives only benefit the landlord, or they benefit the tenant, but the landlord has to pay the bill or pay for the installation. And so the landlord doesn't have an incentive. But I think this model with PVGEMs could benefit the landlord because they don't have to do the maintenance of keeping the HVAC alive for the next 10 years or whatever it is. And also the tenant would save, but they could have some kind of arrangement where the tenant, pays their energy portion. So they're saving money on energy, and the landlord doesn't have to employ a contract for service for their HVAC or whatever it is. So I think that there isn't a lot of solutions to the split incentive problem, so that if you could kind of market your system towards that angle, it might be pretty beneficial.
Good point. While you get the floor, I wonder if you could say a few words about the solicitation that you mentioned that just closed in the nanogrid HVAC, and maybe where's CEC coming from with the motivation for such a solicitation, and where they see that idea of a PV powered HVAC system fitting in.
Oh, sure. I didn't want to toot my horn or whatever, but thanks. I'll make it quick. So we just closed the solicitation that had a commercial or residential application. So the residential was like 1 to 5 tons, which is similar to what we're talking about here. And the idea is the HVAC would be similar to PVGEMs, where it would run off of the solar and energy storage system. with the goal of having no interconnection agreement and zero energy consumption from the grid between 4 and 9 p.m. throughout the summer. So when that energy storage runs out, say at 9:01 p.m., it's going to be 115 this week. So that would be kind of the limit, right? So at 9 p.m., you could use, it would hook up to the grid, but it would only just take power to the HVAC. It would have no connection to the battery or solar. And then similar with the commercial, it's up to 20 tons. So that'd be a bigger solar array. But the idea is not to be limited to lithium ion storage. It could also be phase change materials or thermal storage or something else. Whatever is the most cost effective way to accomplish zero grid energy consumption from 4 to 9 p.m. and maintain the same level of comfort through the HVAC. So another side benefit, it was mentioned earlier, is it opens the door to people that might not have access to solar, either because they have a smaller roof, or like I used to work at a college campus and they had a big interconnection agreement for the whole campus. And if you wanted to just put a little bit of solar on that campus, you'd have to redo the whole interconnection agreement. So this would allow incremental solar for larger customers like that, among other benefits. I could keep going, but that's the shortest version I could go with.
No, that's great. And that's kind of what we're doing, you know, and adding the heat pump water heater in the mix too. And talking about additional storage mechanisms, you know, we do envision the tank, hot water tank, to help us with storage too. So we're
right.
manipulating tank set points, you know, to help store some of the available energy.
Yeah, I remember talking with you a while back, and one of your challenges was the like a DC voltage heat pump. Have you guys come to a conclusion on that, or is it still like AC off the shelf heat pump?
Yep, we're still AC, so relying
Okay.
on inverters, right, to convert into to invert into AC.
Well, I'll keep crossing my fingers that we come up with some. I haven't been able to review the proposals yet, but we got 8 proposals, so it'll be confidential for a while, but maybe someday I'll be able to share with the group what we're working on.
Great.
Does anyone else want to weigh in on the ESCO model community scale approach? And if not, we're getting close to the end of our time. So I want to transition us towards topics for our next meeting, and to see if anyone has requests, if there's any deep dives on the project that you'd like to do to get more information, or just any topics generally that you think would be beneficial for this group to discuss. Please jump in now.
You know, the one thing I'm really hung up on is, you know, the application of the product, you know, how many different markets we can have, and sizing the size of those markets so we can identify whether or not we can get some scale. You know, it's got to reach a point where we can do, I would say, 70 to 100,000 units a year before it really gets some excitement to it and generates some activity among contractors to go after the market.
Yeah, and along those lines, I guess one of the things I'm interested in is, you know, leveraging those programs, you know, the programs that are deploying deep energy retrofits. And, you know, does PVGEM's technology fit in with those programs? So instead of deploying heat pump water heaters separate from heat pumps for space conditioning, maybe separate from solar and storage, if we bundle this together, you know, would that fulfill program needs? And what's the size of the associated programs? How many homes are they serving? That could start to give us some insight into, you know, the potential size of this market beyond that kind of direct to consumer marketing, direct to interested homeowner approach. If we can leverage these programs to act as kind of a pipeline to hit these numbers that Paul's talking about, I think we're going to need something like that.
Roy, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I'm equipment manufacturer. We make split system residential heat pumps. This idea looks interesting. The shed, are you putting the outdoor unit inside the shed and then ducting it to the outside? Is that the idea?
No, well, right now it's like a horizontal discharge outdoor unit that's mounted on the side of the shed with brackets. So in a kind of a
Oh, okay.
conventional, right, approach.
All right, and then since you're talking a split system, you would have to still run refrigerant piping inside to an indoor unit, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And in the case of the ductless mini split, right, we've got the power connection too to power the
Sure.
indoor unit from the outdoor to the indoor.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is, we're switching to A2L refrigerants due to get lower GWP. These are slightly flammable, so as long as you're keeping that outdoor unit outside, there's probably not much difference than a conventional system is going to be. But looking further down the road, we anticipate we might get pushed to even lower GWP refrigerants, perhaps PFAS restrictions. And therefore, we may end up having to go to something like propane, in which case we'd have to go to a secondary loop system to keep the refrigerant outside. So what's your timeline? I mean, is you looking to come out with something right away, or are you going to anticipate down the road? Because if it's an indirect system, secondary loop system, that could get very interesting. Now this pod might only have water connections to the inside and not refrigerant connections.
Yeah, that is interesting. Commercialization, we don't have a discrete timeline for that. We don't really have milestones and goals related to commercialization other than kind of having these discussions to lay the groundwork as we discussed. The demonstrations, we're going to be working with equipment that's available today and the refrigerants that they're using. And so that's happening over the next couple of years. So that equipment will be installed, as I mentioned, around summer 2025 for those 12 demonstrations. But, moving forward with commercialization, we have to be cognizant of all those required changes to the refrigerant rules.
It's not going to be the availability of any of the old 410 product.
Right.
After, so.
I will say flammability, that's one of the challenges we're dealing with now in terms of permitting with the lithium-ion battery system and making sure we have appropriate fire ratings, fire separation, and all that. So that's what's on the radar screen of the building department right now, more so than refrigerants.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Roy. Anyone else want to add anything into the hopper? Jason?
Yeah, real quick, I thought I'd mention how we addressed the refrigerants because most of our solicitations right now are focused on low, what we're calling ultra low, like less than 10 GWP. But this one, and similar to yours, we kind of called it agnostic. What we're trying to be as cost effective as possible. So whatever heat pump is in the market is what you're going to use. A high TRL heat pump. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel for that component. So it'll have to evolve with the regulatory environment, like was discussed. But I thought I just mentioned that because we had similar discussions internally here.
Okay.
Thanks. And I also see some additions in the chat that we will hold on to for planning our next meeting. Thank you for those. We are just about out time. So before I return it to Eric for any closing remarks, I just want to thank everybody for taking the time this afternoon to meet with us. This group will meet quarterly, so stay tuned for an invite from my colleague Alana. I believe that would put us in early October. We'll plan on keeping this Monday afternoon time slot, but of course we can happy to move around if there's a consensus that is a terrible day to have a meeting. So look out for that. But Eric, any final thoughts before we conclude the meeting?
I just want to echo your sentiment. Thank everybody for participating. Even though we're meeting quarterly, feel free to communicate with us via email or phone. We can continue the discussion in between these quarterly meetings. Let us know if any questions come up, any clarifications you want us to make, any suggestions for additional representation within this group. We can invite, other people to join us if you have any ideas for that. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us before you hear from us with the schedule for the next meeting.
All right, perfect. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.